Hey everyone, Faz here from Nintendo Players UK. We asked some fan questions over on our Facebook page, and we normally ask these at the end of the interview. Now, we did ask these, however, there had been a technical hitch with the audio, so that we couldn't salvage that section of the interview. This normally comes at the end. So I asked Ruben if we could do a re-recording of that section, but he didn't have the time to do so. So we weren't able to re-record it. However, there will be a transcript of some form that answers these questions for you guys, and there will be an update in the form of a tweet or something towards that effect. So please make sure you are following us on those social medias. Regardless, I want to give a huge thank you to Ruben. All of his social media will be linked below. And if there's any questions you think we've missed out, put it in the comment section. We will do our best to try and get those followed up while we get this transcript sorted out. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you guys enjoy the interview. Hello, my name is Faz. Welcome once again to a slightly longer talk. If you don't know what this series is, it's kind of just me having a bit of a ramble with with someone from the industry, whether it's a VA, a community guest, or in this particular case, a VA and mocap guest. And our guest today is Rueben Langdon. Hello.
Hey Vaz, how's it going?
I am doing well. It's actually very windy here today. Just to date myself, it's actually apparently there's a storm happening in the UK. How about yourself? How is it going in Japan?
It's a nice, beautiful day here. It's night now, warming up, and spring is coming.
Yay! For those who might be uninitiated of who you are, Ruben, would you mind giving us a quick rundown of who you are and what you do?
All right. Well, I am an actor, a filmmaker, and an explorer of all kinds of stuff from science to science fiction to virtual reality technologies to making the Earth a better place. And most people know me from my work in the video game industry, but a lot of people outside of the video game industry know me from my work in my documentary filmmaking projects, particularly into the extraterrestrial exploration space.
Okay. And we've asked Ruben to come on today because to celebrate actually that of Ken Master's addition to Super Smash Brothers Ultimate as well, and he also lends the voice to Dante as well. I've got that right.
Yeah.
So let's get this show on the road. Let's go.
Let's get this party started.
Thank you for that. So how did it all begin for you? How did you start doing VA stuff? Because everyone's got very weird stories, or everyone's got very different stories coming in. How did you begin? Because you didn't have quite the normal background.
Yeah, my when you say VA, video games, video voiceover, or what?
Video voiceover, video game voiceover specifically. But however you want to start this.
I started through motion capture. Most of the people probably you interview have the voiceover experience, and they get involved in video games through the voice, through a casting or through something in the voice arenas. But I actually got my foot in the door through motion capture, having my first motion capture gig back in 1997. So out of all the motion capture artists that are still working right now, I only know one other that's been in the industry as long as myself, and he's TJ Storm. I don't know if you've heard that name. He's done a huge body of work, and probably some of you might want to interview in the future. He was the voice in the motion capture performer for Agnes in the Devil May Cry 4 game. So and he's done tons of other stuff, Godzilla. He's done a lot of movies, Predator and stuff like that. But he started back about the same time I did. I started in '97. My first gig was in Japan. Most people back then didn't even know what motion capture was, and I got cast as the motion capture role of Chris Redfield in the game Resident Evil Code Veronica, or Biohazard Code Veronica. Is it called Biohazard in England, or is it Resident Evil?
In England, it's Resident Evil.
Okay.
My quick research kind of comes up with both, so it's like,
yeah.
oh, okay, this is. I guess.
I guess Biohazard's just Japan, really. But so, I started. I started in '97. My first gig was in Japan. Most people back then didn't even know what motion capture was, and I got cast as the but yeah, right now it's almost like most people know both. But yeah, so in 1997, I got that role, and it was an old mocap system before they had the infrared technology, and we were all tied to cables, and we had to have a guy following us around with making sure we didn't trip up over our cables as we performed. And and then a few years later, I moved back to the States, and then in 2000, I got a call to work on the video game Tao Feng for Xbox, and I basically got the call through Sammo Hung, who I was working with at the time. He had gotten the call. They were looking for an action choreographer to help design some of the action for the game, and he asked me, he's like, look, I don't know what this video game stuff is. Ruben, that's your world. Why don't you handle this? So I was the stunt coordinator, choreographer for the game Tao Feng, which was produced and ran by the guy who did Mortal Kombat, John Tobias, the creator of Mortal Kombat. That was his big leap into the next video game generation after Mortal Kombat. So that kind of gives you a little history. Go way back.
So how did the role of Ken come about for you?
Ken was several years later, but still like a decade ago, right? 2007-ish, I want to say, when Street Fighter 4, when they were in developing that, Capcom decided to do localized versions, for different countries. They wanted to, instead of just having the one voice, the one Japanese voice for all of the different games, or for the one game, I should say, that all the different releases in different territories, they decided to localize it in English and in other languages. And I got a call to go to the audition for the voiceover. There was, when they were casting it for that, and I remember reading for a few different roles. I read for Guile, for Ken, for Dan. Maybe there was another one in there, but I just remember being so stoked because they didn't tell us. Like at the audition, they said sort of it was an unnamed fighting game, right? They didn't say what the title was or what it was. And at that time, Street Fighter had kind of been quiet. I was a huge fan of Street Fighter, but there wasn't really much going on in the Street Fighter realm. So when I went to the audition, it was like, oh my God, there's a new Street Fighter in the works. It's so cool. They'd be so awesome to book that. And then a few days, after I did the audition, they called me and said, hey, we'd like you to come in and play the part of Ken. And I was history in the making.
Is that how you met Kyle Hebert, who plays Ryu after in the same game?
Yeah, when we do the recordings, we usually do them individually by ourselves. So I heard Kyle's voice, I think, there, and I don't think I knew him. I knew who he was, just being in the voice industry, the world, and other actors, but I don't think I had officially met him. I think we first met at a convention or something, where he was. I guess
it usually is the case. Like I know from previous interviews that I know that it's separate, but just in case for those who were wanting to ask, because later down the line you reprised the role, like after Street Fighter 4, you reprised the role in Wreck-It Ralph.
Yes, for that project, I actually got to. Well, I saw Kyle either coming or going. Usually they would call us in at the same time or right after each other, and they called us in for that 3 times. I think we went and recorded for that. And I'd usually see him, passing him in the hallway. I'm like, hey, Kyle, what's up? Good to see you here, and we just passed each other like, oh, glad we got this gig. This is nice.
What was it like working with Disney?
We recorded at the Disney Studios.
Sorry, say that again?
We recorded at the Disney Studios in Burbank, California.
What was that sort of process like? Because did you have to go through Capcom? Or
No,
did you?
it was
Was it Disney who was handling most of it?
it was Disney Direct. They just called up my agent at the time and had me come in. Said, "Hey, we want you for this movie we're doing, and it's about all these video game characters, and it's just gonna be one line. Are you cool with that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, totally." And I went in and did the line. Like, took 10 minutes, and so I was like, "That's an easy paycheck." And then a few weeks later, they called me in again. And like, "Hey, we've been working on that line, that one line, and we want to change it up. And can you come back in?" And I said, "Yeah, sure, of course. Another paycheck, absolutely." And then, and then another week later, they call me, "Hey, you remember that line you did? We actually want to re-record it again. We were changing it up again." I'm like, "All right, sure, no problem." So I actually went back 3 times to Disney to record one line.
I've forgotten what the line was. Do you happen to remember what it was?
I forget. I think it was something like, "Hey, Rue, want to go to Tappers for a beer," or something like
I
that.
thought it was for some reason Hadouken. I don't know
Maybe
why
there
I
was a
thought it was
Hadouken in there. There could have been a Hadouken in there, I think. A Hadouken, and then he may have jumped over it or something. It's like, "Hey, you, let's go grab a beer at Tappers," or something like that.
Yeah, I remember this. I remember hearing this in one of Carl's interviews as well. Stepping back a bit, going back to Dante. Well, more to do with your stunt work. What was it like? Because we've talked about you behind the booth. Now you're with. It might be good to delve in a little bit more about the mocap stuff. So when you were brought in Devil May Cry 3, you were brought in as the voice as well as the body of Dante. Um, what was that sort of experience like going from one to another, like swapping between the two? If you
Well,
kind
it
of
wasn't
elaborate on
really. It was so I actually was brought in. My company at the time, we were actually brought in to produce the cutscenes, to help
that.
produce the cutscenes for Devil May Cry 3.
Mm,
Um, we had pitched to Capcom. My partner and I, Just Cause, had pitched to Capcom that we could hire native English speaking performers from the States to go and work on these games in Japan. Because up until that point, most games produced out of Japan, even though the final product would be in English, they used Japanese motion capture actors, because the gaming industry here at the time, this was 15 years ago or so, they didn't really know how to get good talent, I should say. The only access to talent that they had was local English speaking, mostly actually English teachers here in Japan and Tokyo. And the talent pool, I hate to say, was very limited, especially at that time. It's grown since, but so my partner and I sort of proposed to Capcom and some of the other game companies that, and this was after having my experience working for Capcom on the Dreamcast title Resident Evil Code Veronica.
Yeah.
And I sort of saw some of the just ways to improve the whole production, and we pitched to the game companies that we could hire talent from the States and sort of coordinate, translate, take care of the whole all the stuff that nobody really wanted to do, or didn't really have access to do because of the language barrier and that kind of thing. So they gave us retakes for Resident Evil Outbreak. It was sort of a 3-day shoot, a very small shoot, and they said, "Hey, we've got some retakes, some reshoots to do here, and we want to try your idea, what you guys are proposed. We really like that concept. We've wanted to do that. We've wanted to hire foreign native English speaking talent, but we just didn't know how to go about it." So so they took us up on our proposal and hired us to cast and coordinate and fly and get visas and do the whole thing. So our company sort of proved ourselves with that, and literally I think it was the last day when I was still in Japan after we did that shoot, and they said, "Hey, well, they went really well. We've got another project coming up We're going to be doing Devil May Cry 3. It's a prequel. And hey, Ruben, you actually kind of look like the main character. Why don't you try out for the audition as well? And I was like, yeah, I'd love to. I love that. I'd played at the game at the time. I was a pretty heavy gamer. I had played one. I was a fan of it, and I said, absolutely, I'd love to play that role. So I auditioned actually there in Japan once, and then back in the States. I held auditions for all the roles and auditioned myself, and then I went through a third and final audition when the producers flew to the States to do a final callback casting for the other characters as well as my character. So actually, some of the guys who we had auditioned for that I actually had Johnny, Bosch, and Dan both read for Dante.
They both read for Dante.
Yeah,
that's
back in the day.
Something I did not know.
Yeah.
I can't. Can I? Oh no, I was gonna say I can't really imagine Johnny as Dante, but then again, it would have been like a very interesting take if it was him.
Yeah. So they all and I think both Johnny and Dan made it to the callbacks. Well, Dan was. They really liked Dan's Virgil, so he was at the callback for Virgil. But they also said, "Hey Dan, just in case, can you read for Dante as well?" And he read Dante as well, and I think I read for Dante and Virgil for both, and then they kind of made their decision to go with me for Dante and Dan for Virgil. And Johnny, they said we're sorry, and then when 4 came around, they said, well, we've got this new character Nero, and I was like, oh, maybe Johnny might be good for this one, and we called him back. And he's like, oh, I'm auditioning again here, and I don't think he was definitely the most. He stood out the most out of everybody that we auditioned for the Nero character. There was a few people, but it was pretty much Johnny from the get-go on that one.
All right. Well, shout outs to our boy Johnny on Bosch. He's currently at a convention.
Yeah, and it's been great because the three of us all have this sort of Power Ranger Sentai background.
Yeah, I was about to ask about that because I was gonna say what was the differences, but if you want to go into a bit, the floor is yours.
Well, no, and that was one of the reasons why I chose Johnny and Dan to come in to audition for the role, because at the time when I was producing the cutscenes and we were bringing talent over to the States. Bringing talent from the States over to Japan, they had to meet a certain criteria. And first and foremost, they had to be easy to work with. We didn't want any divas on our team because when our company we were just starting out at the time, Just Cause was just starting and making a name for ourselves. And in Japan, the culture is very different. The rules here are different. Your word is everything here, really. Contracts are one thing, but more importantly, it's your word, and you can't go back. So once you commit to something, you really have to follow through. And if you don't, then you're being shamed. It's basically you'll never work in the industry again. It's very strict, much more so than the States. So we wanted to make sure whoever we brought to Japan, and being in a foreign country, they had to behave themselves, because if they were not, then that would reflect poorly on us. So that was sort of the first criteria, is they had to be easy and nice to work with. Second criteria was because we were doing motion capture, it was very physical. It wasn't just your standard TV acting or stage performance. We needed people with physical skills, combat skills, and both Johnny and Dan were amazing martial artists, and also having the experience on Power Rangers. They sort of been through Power Ranger boot camp, I call it, and Koichi and the Alpha Stunt team really primed a lot of the actors through the years of Power Rangers there. So most of the people I brought into the auditions were ex-Power Rangers because they knew how to physically move as well as act. And what we were pushing for Devil May Cry 3, which is now the industry standard, was full performance capture. We're pushing the same actor to do both the motion capture and the voice. Older games like Resident Evil, they, it was always sort of a mix match. One person did the mocap, another person did the voice, and those voices got established. So a lot of those voice actors weren't motion capture performers. They didn't have the physicality or the physical training to do mocap. Amazing voice actors, though. So because for Devil May Cry 3, they sort of let us, they sort of told us, well, we're not confined to the voices. We're going to recast the voices anyways. So you guys can, sort of run the show however you want. And then we sort of pitched to Capcom that overall, it's our belief at the time that the characters would become stronger and more believable and more just more unified if we could have the actor and performer do both the motion capture and the voice. And Capcom agreed. They went with it. Unfortunately, at the time, the studio we were working in didn't have the soundproofing. So we still went back and re-recorded over our voices. We sort of did ADR in the booth, but Capcom did stick with having us do both the mocap and the voices.
Right. So, what's really the difference, or what's the major difference between mocap and just normal stunt work? Because at the moment, to someone who may not be initiated, they may not see the difference right now.
Well, motion capture, there's a whole slew of motion capture. If you've seen movies like Lord of the Rings or King Kong or Avatar, right? So motion capture is performance. It's performance capture is another word for it. In fact, I think the industry was really pushing to change it to performance capture as opposed to motion capture. Now, in the early days, most of the games that we played and we saw were mostly very physical, stunt-heavy, Call of Duties, war stuff, fighting, martial arty stuff. But now as the games have evolved and become more realistic, then, they required more realistic performances and more sort of Lord of the Rings film-like performances. So the need for performance started to outweigh the need for stunts, so to say. So the motion capture industry evolved from a stunt-heavy, stunt-oriented business to more of a performance now what it is more of a performance-driven business. And there still are stunt days and there still are stunt performers that come in, but it's very much like a film now. The whole motion capture experience in games is more like a film in the sense that you cast for performance and then you have your stunt guy come in and do the stunt doubling or the stunt work for the day or for a couple of days or whatever it is. Does that make sense?
Sort of. So you're saying there's now more a blurring of the lines now, is what you're trying.
Well, no, I would say it's more film-like. So motion capture for video games or for film or whatever it is the approach is now more like a film or television.
Okay.
There's no difference. Actually, it's almost the same.
Oh, okay. Okay, no, that makes more sense.
So when people say motion capture, they automatically, I guess maybe this is because of the old days, they automatically assume stunts. But for Devil May Cry, the latest one, for 3 and 4, I did most of my own stunts. But for the latest one, I had a stunt double. I didn't do any of my stunts.
That must have been weird.
I didn't do.
You're normally the stunt double.
I'm usually the stunt double for other people, but I've earned my my what do you call it, performer card or grade up, and now I have people doing my own stunts for me. Just like Jackie Chan. He used to do all his own stunts, and now with age comes a little respect, and you get your own stunt team and your own stunt doubles to do the work for you.
All right. Just a side step, since you mentioned Jackie Chan,
Mm-hmm.
I've been a huge Jackie Chan fan as a child. Watched a lot of his films, and apparently you had worked with him quite a few times.
Yeah.
What was that experience like working with him and other legends like Sammo Hung?
Oh, it's dream come true. Absolute honor. Still some of the highlights of my life. I can't even put into words the experience, the knowledge, just the honor of working with both Jackie and Sammo, and being taken in. Especially Sammo really took me under his wing, and I got to spend a lot of time with him, several years actually, working under him. So kind of even taken in under the family in a way. So just super blessed. It's and all the experience that they've given me has gone into my other working with James Cameron and working with the Devil May Cry stuff and everything else.
You also worked on and I know I'm just like saying, oh, and you also worked on this thing, and you also worked on this
Sure,
thing.
sure. I've worked on a lot of stuff.
For everyone who's listening, the reason why I bring this up is because he's done quite a lot of stuff, and a lot of people, to us, he's the voice of Ken, and he's the voice of Dante, and he's the mocap guy for Dante as well. But it's just to emphasize that these guys do things outside of it, and it's weird how much of a rich history that you have, because you've also worked with on YouTube stuff as well on the side from time to time. I think the one that came up was, at least the one I'm most familiar with, is Freddie W.
Yeah, I got to work with Freddie.
So how did that come about? Just as a quick side.
So one of the action choreographers that I worked with over the years, who is part of Jackie Chan's stunt team, is Brad Allen. And he did the action design for the Kingsman films. And one of his choreographers was in LA working for Freddie on this Kingsman sort of spin-off, thing. And I knew him, Yang, or Young, I should say. And he called me up. He said, "Hey, are you in town? Can you come help out with this Freddie Long video?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." Sure, I love Freddie's work. He's a funny guy. I'd love to help out with that. So, yeah, that's how it happened.
I saw a lot of Jackie Chan vibes to it. It was very heavy on that sort of way of fighting. But is that your favorite style of martial arts in that sense? Because I know you're trained in that area. Whenever you do, is that something you try to take on and try to show off more in games like Devil May Cry, or even in performances like with Ken Masters?
Well, I mean, with Ken Masters, it's more voice, so I don't really have control over the physicality.
That's true. I mean, I was hoping you'd be able to do a Tatsumaki in real life, but
That would be awesome. And there are some people who can do pretty close to a Tatsumaki, but unfortunately not me. If you put me on a wire, maybe. But I'm a huge fan of Jackie's. I'm a huge fan of the Hong Kong stuff from the 80s. That was a big influence in my upbringing, my training, actually getting to work with Jackie and Sammo. So definitely there's a lot of influences there, and I'm a fan of comedy and action comedy, the Jackie Chan style of stuff like you were mentioning. So yeah, I mean, any opportunity. In fact, the action director or I should say the cutscene director of Devil May Cry, Yuji Shimomura, who's based here in Japan. Since I've been here in Japan the past few months, he got me on a TV show that's gonna come out here in the end of the month or next month, doing some sort of Jackie Chan style fight choreography. So it's I forget the title. It's a Japanese name, but I'll post it on my Facebook and it'll come out. It should be fun. We had a good time. Only a few days of shooting, but heavily Jackie Chan influenced. So yeah, I still do that stuff.
If you want to check out Rueben in real life Rueben, I guess.
Yeah.
Rueben life? IRL. You can check that out on his Facebook. Pay attention to that. So going back to the more game dev type questions, I know I've just been fanboying about all these little things.
Sure.
What was it? Did you get a chance to work with Yoshinori Ono-san from the Street Fighter side? And I know you probably had more of a working relationship with Itsuno-san, Hideaki-san, sorry.
Yeah.
For Devil May Cry, but what was those experiences like? Because Yoshinori Ono came to the UK only once a couple of years back during the launch of Street Fighter 5. We did a short interview with him back then about his experiences with Smash Brothers, which is kind of weird. Like everything's kind of coming back to Smash Brothers eventually.
Yeah.
But what was that experience like? Have you had a chance to work with Ono directly, and what was that experience like?
Unfortunately, I did not work with him directly. Most my stuff in the ADR booth was a Capcom producer and the voiceover, the localization team, Jonathan Klein, and the first Street Fighter 4 stuff was with Taliesin Jaffe, who was the voiceover director. Did an amazing job, and it was mainly working with them. I think Ono-san was busy working on the game mechanics and not, he's not a fluent English speaker, so he kind of left that to the other Capcom staff. I did and have run into Ono-san several times at various conventions, and I'm a fan, a huge fan of Street Fighter, and a fan of that's my favorite game, by the way. Sorry, Devil May Cry fans, but Street Fighter, I've been playing it since high school, and I make the claim, and I still hold this true. I make the claim that I'm the best voice actor player of Street Fighter.
Is it now?
Yeah. So I'll take the challenge.
Really test that theory.
I have every convention I go to. I always bring my fight stick, and I've fought Kyle. I've fought in quite a few voice actors, and I kick their ass every time. It's a call out, everyone. Yeah, it's a call out. And I threw this out. Last year I was in Vegas for a convention, and I said, "Hey, Evo, if you guys really want to have some fun side shows, why don't you call in the voice actor crew, the cast?" And I even put together a list, and I started getting names of voice actors, Street Fighter voice actors who would be up for going for Evo. And I got a huge list, almost 80% of the cast. Others I just didn't have their personal contacts. So if Evo or if any other conventions out there want, to put a show on, there's a lot of us voice actors who would love an opportunity to go at each other.
I feel like that. I think if it doesn't happen at Evo, I think CEO would be a very good second choice for that.
Very well. Let's plant these seeds. Hopefully somebody's listening to this and plant the seeds, because I would love to prove this, theory I have. It's not a theory, so far, every convention I've been to, I wipe the floor, and I'm not as good as a pro player, but, I make the claim in the voice actor arena, I'm the best Street Fighter player there is.
Maybe what we can do is if we can get Capcom UK to get it at EGX or something, bring all the voice cast down, make it a show, part of the Capcom Pro Tour. Maybe that might be a cool one. Maybe we'll see you.
I'll bring my fight stick.
See you in the UK, hopefully.
Yes, that would be amazing.
And then winner plays against Problem X. That's clearly what's going to happen.
Well, we all and the only thing is we all have to play our characters. Like, so you have to play. They'd have, I play Ken. Everybody else has to play. Kyle would play Ryu, and whoever else would play whoever else, right? So that's the rules, and we go a few rounds and see who's the best.
I mean, we could do the exact same thing, but with Super Smash Brothers, right?
We could, and I would lose miserably. I unfortunately the game.
The gauntlet.
Unfortunately, I have a Switch, and I've been playing Smash Brothers. My wife kills me every time, and it doesn't. The game mechanics are, even though there's some of the same moves in there, it's a very different game. The strategy, everything is very different. So I suck at it. To be honest, I suck at Smash Brothers. I will not make that. What's that?
Who do you main as?
Well, Ken, of course.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
But unfortunately, I would not last long in that arena. But if we win a little Street Fighter 4 or 5 or whatever, whatever Street Fighter version you want to throw in, I feel I can hold my claims, my title, so to say, my unofficial title.
In before it's SNK versus Capcom, clearly. For the Wii.
That one we'll see, but no, we'll see.
All right. I think that kind of. Oh wait, no. Before I forget, Itsuno-san. Itsuno Hideaki was the director for DMC5.
Yes.
What was that experience like working with him directly? Because I'm assuming it's going to be quite different working with more. I would have said more American type, but I'm not sure. Have you actually worked with more American companies in that side, like the different types of culture between American and Japan at that point?
I have, yeah. I've worked on titles like The Last of Us, in Uncharted, Tomb Raider, and very closely with Itsuno-san, from 3, 4, and 5, and it's just been he's one of my favorite guys to work with. And I was just talking to one of the other Capcom staff the other day at this party, how there's something really special about working with the DMC team, because the trust factors that Itsuno-san has, and especially Itsuno-san, right? He's I think one of the reasons why the game 5 is doing as well as it is, and received as well as it is because Itsuno-san is the kind of guy that he trusts his team. First, he knows how to pick a good team. And then once he picks them, instead of trying to micromanage them like some of the other Capcom titles, which I won't get into, he really knows how to just let everybody shine and do their thing and come up with awesome ideas. And Capcom has their own localization team, but Itsuno-san was adamant several times with when the localization team was trying to push a specific script or a rewrite or something like that. Itsuno-san said, no, I trust the Just Cause team, I trust Rueben and these guys, and he went with our version of the script, so to say, our localization, our translation, and our rewrites. And I really feel that trust, for one, it just makes a way easier work environment, work experience. We get along great. It's we go to play, not to work, and we just have a blast. We have a ball every day on set, and we get to create, and we don't feel like our hands are tied. We actually get to come up with cool ideas and incorporate it. And Itsuno-san's very open and willing to listen and incorporate. And he has his vision, and we're all working together to support the vision, but improve on, which is, it's just really nice to be in that environment. And every time, it's just been over the years. We've been working together off and on for 15 plus years now. So the trust has become greater and greater, and especially in 5, it was we had such an awesome time during the mocap.
Well, I'm glad. Hopefully, and I know right now DMC5 is not on the Nintendo Switch, but hopefully it does make it to the Nintendo Switch, because I feel like because you probably do know this because you played the first one, the Bayonetta. Have you had a chance to play Bayonetta yourself?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I worked on the first one.
You worked on the first one? Okay, right. I need to know about this. Tell me a bit about this, because this is actually, I've not seen this credited anywhere.
Well,
how were you involved with Bayonetta?
Again, Just Cause, my company, we were in charge of casting and original localization for the cutscenes for Bayonetta. So I helped with the casting, was also part of coordinating of bringing the cast over and to Japan, translating on set. But here's a prime example. So we had done our version of the translations of the scripts, and we did everything. And then a wrench got thrown in, from some other staff members, and this was This was what game company was this? Platinum Games? Don't I say Platinum?
Platinum Games are
Yeah.
in charge of Bayonetta, yes.
So this was Platinum Games, and their localization team came in after the fact, after we'd done all this work, and they said your script sucks, and they threw away our script, even though after we had already mocapped it, and they rewrote and redid a bunch of stuff, which I felt just was, I'm a fluent Japanese speaker. I've been speaking Japanese for over 20 years, and it just was a horrible translation, in my opinion, and a horrible localization, a horrible rewrite, and I feel the game could have been way better if they again, this is my pride obviously was damaged in this, but also just seeing results. It's also just seeing what we've done with Devil May Cry and that series, and it's just a shame that some certain people have to put their stamp on it and just to make it different, even though if it's nothing's broken. If it's not broken, why do you need to fix it, kind of thing. But certain people need to put their stamp on it and try to own it, and by doing so they put other people down, as opposed to, let's say, hey, let's all work together to make this thing better. And unfortunately they went with a different adaptation for the final product. So maybe you didn't see my name on it because whoever was in charge of crediting didn't want to have that credit there, but the casting and the original mocap and voiceover production was the original before it got rewritten, was Just Cause in my company.
I see. So it would be difficult to tell, at least obviously from a post Bayonetta standpoint, when that change may have happened.
Because it happened after the mocap.
As a big, I'll say as it is, like, as a big Bayonetta fan, as someone, I thoroughly enjoyed the first and second one. It's a bit difficult to tell which side was the motion capture and which side where the changes had happened.
You can't. I think in the final product you can't really tell what. It was really just during the production. So working with Kamiya-san and those guys, it was great because we had this. He was the creator of the original Devil May Cry, and here I was, playing Devil May Cry, and we had Yuji, who was the same cutscene director for the Devil May Cry series. So it had a lot of similarities in taste, and a lot of stuff that we had already were familiar with, being having worked on the Devil May Cry projects. So it was a natural choice, but again, like I said, there's some people there, which I don't think they're part of that company anymore, but at the time they were part of the company, who were trying to prop themselves up, and in order to do so they had to sort of push other people down, and unfortunately we were those other people, my company and myself, and our version of the script.
I see. Well, in either case, I don't. It's like I don't know how to exactly like properly segue onto the next part from here. I'm gonna just at least for me anyway, because it's interesting to hear from someone who did work on a project and then at least even for a brief period, and then have a similar game. Well, I wouldn't say similar game, but a game that come out that has the takes on it are so different, and yet so similar. It's my words, they're escaping me right now. I'm so sorry.
No, but I get you.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to see more content like this. You can find me on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and we do live stream a lot on Twitch. It would be super helpful if you do share the video. And as always, and remember, I hope you guys have a very wonderful and happy Faz Day. See you next video, everyone.